Greetings, this is Ray Mofield, and we're happy to be broadcasting today from the Oak Level Road from the home of Dan Draffen. It's a real pleasure to be in his house and to begin the broadcast by asking, how old are you, Mr. Draffen?
95.
95?
Yeah.
Say, that's startling. And, you know, I can't tell how old anyone is when they pass 65. So you look just like any 65-year-old man would look. Well, you must have been, let's see, you were born before the century started then.
Yeah. 1887.
My father was born in 1891, and so he's, I guess, just a little bit younger than you.
Yeah.
Of course, he died in 1970. I don't know if you knew him or not.
No, I didn't.
Were you old enough to be involved in World War
I got in right under the wires, 31.
Yeah.
They drafted me. I wouldn't have had to go on. Just me and my mother were living together. But I wanted to go, and the others was going. And, of course, my other brothers took care of her.
Well, we'll come back to that in just a minute. I want to ask you about the division you served in and so forth. But before we do, I guess we better get you into telling us something about your parents.
About my parents.
Yeah, who was your father?
William Butler Draffen.
And he married whom?
He married Elizabeth McManus.
Elizabeth McManus.
Yeah.
You know, one of the most unusual things that ever happened to me, I used to announce basketball games.
Yeah.
And I went to Simpsonia one night, and they were playing, and they started 5 McManuses.
Yeah.
You know, McManus is a word that's got several syllables in it, so it takes a little while to say it.
Yeah.
And then with all 5 players, usually I just call a player's last name.
Yeah.
But then I had to call the full names of 5 McManuses. So they just about ruined me at Simpsonia that night.
Yeah.
People are so interested in genealogy these days. Can you take your names of people back beyond your parents? Did you know your grandparents on either side?
My grandfather was named John.
John Draffen.
John Draffen, yeah. And
was he a Marshall County too?
well, I guess he was, yeah. His daddy came from Scotland. 2 of them came over to Virginia, and then they migrated down here.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've gotten them all the way back overseas, so that's real good.
And their name was William and John, I think.
2 very common names, of course.
Yeah.
All right, and then and your mother was a McManus. Do you happen to know?
My grandmother was a McManus.
Oh, your grandmother was a McManus, yes.
My mother was a Morgan.
A Morgan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of different sets of Morgans in the county.
Yeah.
Some of them tell me they're not even kin to one another.
No, they're not. I've met some that's no kin whatever. And her father is named Daniel Morgan, and her mother was Jane Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm. Your memory is just as sharp as a briar. It's real fine. Where did you go to school, Mr. Draffen?
Benton.
You went to Benton School?
Benton's all.
So that goes way back. I believe they say they've had a continuous publicly supported school there since 1869. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's the old building had room, and 2 rooms. One a room downstairs and one upstairs, and then one on the side
Yes, sir.
when I first started.
Well, let's see. If you were born in 1887, then you started the school way before the turn of the century also.
Yeah,
About 1893 or something
Yeah.
like that.
yeah. Started when I was 6-year-old.
Do you happen to remember your first teacher?
Mm-hmm. Miss Lucy Benton.
Lucy Bearden. Well, that is...
She was the best woman I ever saw.
Well, we've had some great teachers over the years.
Oh, you bet.
And what did you like most in school, Mr. Draffen?
Oh, I liked mathematics and grammar that we had at that time.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I wasn't much good in history and geography. I couldn't remember anything, dates or anything like that.
Tell us something about the games you played on the school ground, or anything you remember along that line.
Yeah, we played with the football. Just had lined up on one end and then on the other, half and half.
Mm-hmm.
He'd kick that ball and start through with it.
Yeah.
Oh, brother.
Benton was one of the few towns of that size, I guess, that played football. Years ago, I remember hearing Gip Watkins talk about playing on the football team. Then I heard my father-in-law, Ezra Blumenberg, say once that he played in the first football game he ever saw.
I never played but one real game. Tillis Blatch had a team here. And Paducah Tillman fell out of the faculty down there some way or another. And they telephoned out here and got a game. Well, they sent 11 tickets, I believe. And I happened to be at the depot. Teller says, "Come on, go with us." He didn't have enough to fill out the 11. Albert Strong, George Lawson, Rob Marr, Lex, Naaman Dukes, and some others. Well, they lined up down there, and Tillman had a team. I mean, it hadn't been beat, hadn't been scored on.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know a signal, didn't even know nothing about football. I was sure I got some teeth knocked out, crippled up bad. Tell us come around and says, "You got to play now." I put on Albert's suit. It's coming all about there. And they thought I was the same player from Marion, a good football player. And Lord, when they lined up there, I was in the line. There's 2 fellas hit me. They knocked me for 15 feet, I thought. Well, he hit me right on the chin with his fist. Next time I lined up, I beat him to it. I laid him down. Yeah, he got up and said, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't play that way." I said, "You started, now come on." Well, we went on and scored on them. Scored twice. And I got the ball out in the open. Nobody between me and the goal. I guess I ran 40 yards or more and to give out. By gosh, I couldn't make another step.
That's pretty tough.
I had to score that.
Yeah.
I just didn't have a win.
You hadn't trained for that game.
No, I
well,
wasn't training at all.
Yeah.
Didn't know a signal, nothing.
All right. So you got through school at Benton,
Yeah.
and what did you do after that? Did you get married right away?
Oh, Lord, no. I taught school, for a year after Walter Grove. And I decided to never teach anymore. I lost 20 pounds in 6 months.
What didn't you like about it?
Oh, I didn't like being in the house and they wouldn't learn. I wanted them to learn.
Mm-hmm.
All of them, they wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I quit. And Rob Meyer, my brother-in-law, was teaching at Brazil next year. So he took a notion to go to elections in the law school, and I finished up down there 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a good school. If I'd have kept it up, I'd have been all right.
You liked it better.
Oh, yeah. I drew a hard district when I got that first one. They're good folks, finest you ever saw anywhere, but they just didn't have that.
Some of the boys and girls just didn't want to tackle the books very
No.
much. Yeah.
Their folks didn't need it.
Well, we run into a few like that now.
Oh, yeah, you get the same thing.
Yeah. All right, and then after that,
Well, I farmed.
well,
Up
what
to-
was farming like when you first started?
Well, she was horse and plowing.
You had to break everything
Break
with
everything with a
two
horse
horses?
plow, and then tend it with a double shovel and the rasters and scratchers.
I remember my dad had a number 13 Oliver 2-horse breaking plow. He liked that because on the Oliver, every time you bought a new plow point, you got a new cutting edge on the moldboard.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
all
we
the
had a
way he ever farmed.
19 Oliver and number 10 Vulcan. I like the Oliver the best.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then you said you had to plow with a double shovel. That meant you had to make a whole round to plow one road, and
Yeah.
I've done that myself.
Yeah. And
Did you ever
Well,
split
I
the
didn't.
middles with a bull tongue?
yeah, but we just split them with a double shovel most of the time.
Uh-huh. That
I
rastus
was
was
hoeing when I
a
was 6 years old.
Did you milk a cow?
Yeah, we kept cows, raised hogs and cattle,
What were your field crops? Corn and tobacco, or
corn, tobacco, wheat, hay.
I wonder if you ever
Everything
grew
was
any
bought.
cotton.
One time, there was a little patch of cotton.
Some person told me once that at one time, I believe they said there was a cotton gin in
Yeah.
Benton, or around here somewhere.
Who was it put up that cotton gin? Oh, he's Luella Peterson's brother.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of his name. Yeah, it is right down there where.
Ross Acre?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
All
That was his
right.
name.
So they did have a cotton gin.
Yeah, it stayed here about 2 years or better. And burnt down. He went to Arkansas.
Mm-hmm. But mostly your money crop was tobacco.
Tobacco is all about the old thing we got any money out of.
Now that was dark-fired tobacco,
Mhm.
wasn't it?
Yeah, all around the year round.
My dad once told me that it took 13 months to make dark tobacco crop.
That's a fact.
You sold it in February, but you had to burn a new plant bed in January.
Yeah.
Oh, that was tough. In
Oh,
those days, you didn't have all the sprays you
I
have.
didn't
now.
have anything. You had to catch them with
Worm it?
your worm,
Sucker?
sucker.
Boy, I can
Oh.
remember coming in and gum was all over you from head to toe and getting the hairs on your arms. And if you didn't have Mary Warley soap, you had a problem.
Yeah. We had that. We run it down out of the ash hopper.
Yeah. You made soap then, and you didn't go to the store and buy Mary Warley
No, we made our own lye.
out of wood ashes.
And my brother took a little sip of it. Boy, oh, he was burnt bad, they said. I don't remember these. How I know it enough to remember. They left us out there while it run out, you know, and it looked red and pretty as he went by.
Did you do much for recreation in those days, Mr. Draffen? What did you do?
Oh, we played ball. And we had a basketball court right down there where Forrest Cole lives in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
We played basketball there, and we had a ball team here, and we called it Coneville.
Yes.
And we'd play Hamlet. We'd go down to Elvie and play, and out in Vanzor, they had a team out there, and we'd play them. I played on the Benton team here 2 years, when they had a good team.
Now let's see. The railroad opened in 1890, I believe. You might even remember. You remember the first train? You'd have been pretty small.
I guess I did. I can remember. See, they built the road out to Levi's Race right down there by the factory.
Mm-hmm.
And on the railroad. And they built it out to there. And we had built a new house and moved from the old one down there. And they rented that, and the workers lived there for while there's a building right through here, right toward the bunch of them. Well, they had an old cook by the name of Ike, nigger cook. I'd take 2 big sweet potatoes down there, and he took them for me and him. Boy, he could really cook them.
Had a good skill at that.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we better get you into maybe Army service now. What division did you serve with?
80th machine gun.
Uh-huh.
13th machine.
Now,
13.
where did you train at Camp Taylor, Kentucky?
No, I went to Camp Taylor, but I went from there to Beauregard, Louisiana. Trained down there.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't down there but a short while.
And then you went overseas.
Went overseas in June and come back in June.
You went in, June 1917?
18, I guess.
1918, and came back in June 1919.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just over there like 4 days of being a year, I believe.
What parts of the front, do you remember any part that you served? Did you?
New Sargon.
Uh-huh.
And it was up in there. And they had them out on top when I went in. I went through the trenches where they'd been, and they didn't leave a tree standing nowhere where they shelled that place.
So you were with the artillery?
Infantry and a machine gun.
Yeah, machine gun, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I never got killed but once.
You mean you were injured?
The third shell over, we dropped our packs in the shed and just going to carry a half pack up to the front. And they just put them in there and come back out. Here come a shell, and it dropped on behind the shed there. The next one come, and it dropped over about that far. And you heard the next ones, boy, and we all hit the ground. A piece of hot mud hit me right there. Oh, I thought I was a goner. But I reached up and there wasn't no blood. That's all right.
That would have been a very frightening time. Then you came back in June of 1919. What did you begin doing then? You go back to farming?
No. The crop was done pretty well along. I went to Akron, Ohio, and I didn't have, but they paid us $60 when it come out. And I spent that for a suit of clothes. and pulled out to Akron, Ohio, and worked for Goodyear for a while up there. Well, I stayed till it turned cool up there one morning. I was up there with a summer suit on, I like froze. Some of them says, "Oh, you just wait till winter if you want to see some weather." I says, "I want to see it. I'm going home." So I came in home.
What was Benton like when you were a boy? Could you trace some of the developments? You remember some of the stores? Or?
Oh, yeah. Uncle Jeffy, he had a store about halfway up to Benton, up to the courthouse from the depot on Main Street. And then there's Uncle Rich Reed had a store where whatever it is, loaning place there.
Uh-huh.
And there's a store then, two or three more stores there. When I first come into the
Blacksmith shop, I guess.
Yeah, blacksmith shop. And there wasn't no industry at all. Sawmill, Trees had a sawmill, and Brandon had one.
Uh-huh. We never did get you married, did we?
No, I was a long time getting married.
Well, when did you marry?
26, wasn't it? 1926. Yeah, I was carrying the mail on Route 4, and
You were getting up close to 40 years old, weren't you?
38.
38 years old.
And Lorraine, she is younger than I was. She lived on the route out there. I told him I just waited for her to grow up.
You're waiting for a beautiful young lady.
Yeah. So she went up to Detroit to visit her sister. And I wrote her a letter and told her I'd come up and we'd get married. So I went up there and had to take a blood test and a 3-day waiting, I believe, something like that.
But it is worth it.
And Hop Heights, he drove me up there. He lived up there. It looked like he was going to turn cold. He had on light clothes, and he said, "I'm going home. You get ready now. We're going home." So we pulled out and I stopped at Effingham, Illinois, and got married on the way back.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know where Effingham is, about halfway down the state. Then you came back. You say you were carrying the mail?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd been carrying the mail there for... I started in 1920, the second day of August. I made my first trip.
All right. Did you have any children?
Yeah, we had 4 children. Jodan, Betty, and then I lost a child 9 months old between Betty and Bob.
Mm-hmm. Well, I knew Joe Dan and Betty. I remember when Betty worked at Murray State.
Yeah.
Now she's teaching at South Marshall, I believe.
Yeah.
Joe Dan, of course, was one of our all-time great basketball players, I thought.
Yeah,
He played in the Southeastern Conference, at Mississippi State? Then he became coach there, didn't he?
Yeah.
Joe Dan Gold, excuse me, yeah.
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 Yeah, Joe never did play after he left. He really got
I
a
was
scholarship
getting
at
off on the
Memphis.
wrong trail there.
He got a scholarship at Memphis.
Uh-huh.
And he didn't have a background for college that he ought to had. So he couldn't carry both basketball and his work, both. And he dropped out. He wouldn't play.
Okay. Now, do you have any grandchildren?
Yeah. It's 3, 5.
I can't keep up with them myself.
About 8, I think, is it?
4, 7, 10.
Who's this young man over here now?
Bob.
He's Bob's boy. D. Draffen.
All right, did you continue carrying the mail all through your entire career, or?
Yeah, I carried it for 32 years. Started into the horse and buggy. You know, it really gets rough. Boy, no road. Had to ford on
Little creeks
and
got
things.
flooded in the winter and
Yeah,
muddy. I guess March was a terrible month every year.
you bet.
And
And then I got a 23 Ford, I believe, Roadster. We could use it about 5 months out of the year till they got the roads up to where we could use them all the time.
so you drove the car for several years, just drove it in more or less in the summer. And,
Yeah.
and then in the winter, you'd have to go back to your horse and buggy.
Yeah. Of course,
When did they first gravel most of the roads in the county?
Oh, it is.
About 1930 or so?
Yeah,
around there?
somewhere along there.
I know they built this highway from, I guess, Paducah to Hazel, Kentucky, through Murray and Benton in about 1929,
Yeah.
and I think they paved that in 33.
I'd forgotten. I didn't remember when it was.
But of course, you didn't have any paved roads to carry the
No.
mail on much, I guess.
Tell them about when you got
I had
a new
about
car.
5 miles of gravel when I started.
And the water went down the creek and the water got up over the car and he had to just drove it one day, a brand new car. The water was there.
Now, tell us about the new car that got flooded.
I swapped for a 2-door Ford Model T, and drove it around the route one day. Next day I started, and it's come the darndest rain I ever saw. Well, just when I went in the glade, I had to come down the glade and come around and turn through, but it had the beaver dam up there. And it was up so big that I couldn't get in. I had to back to the glade and come back around Hardin. So I was coming across Croak Creek, and while I'd gone down there, it was just coming down in humps.
Mm-hmm.
That creek was. I drove in there and forded, and the accelerator fell off and killed the engine. When I started it, I dug down in the gravel and
There you were.
there I was. It gotten 4 inches to the top of the windshield.
Oh, and a new car.
I had a brand new car.
And you just had to have everything torn down and rebuilt, I guess.
I swapped it off out on the bank instead of pulling me out with a block in the line. And I left it there and walked in from Glade to Benton. Packed my mail. And,
Rather than risk it, you just traded it off.
yeah, come back and trade for $50.
Well, it wasn't quite as bad as I
Oh,
thought it
boy.
would be. That's bad, of course. What did you make for a month carrying the mail then?
Started in $150.
Well, it took a third of a month's pay to trade cars.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Draffen, we just have another minute or two
Yeah.
left. Do you have a special story you'd like to tell me before we sign off?
I can't think of anything.
To what do you attribute your long and glorious 95 years of life? Do you have anything you think is...
I reckon it is hard work and not a worry about anything.
Keep the worries down and keep your mind occupied and keep yourself busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was always a good eater.
Uh-huh. And you waited a long time to marry, but you got a good wife,
Yeah, I did. I couldn't have beat it.
so that helped a lot too. Well, it's a real pleasure to talk to you, Mr.
Yeah.
Draffen.
Yeah,
I'm visiting your home, and I appreciate
Lots
the
more.
opportunity.
I could have told you about the railroad, more about it. So, on Sunday morning, first morning I got out there, there's a crowd met him down to where the station is now. And there's a big old Irishman up the engineer. And there's just a gawking and a looking. He says, "I'm going to turn around." Oh, that fell back and got out of the way. He got up and turned around and sat down.
Yeah. Well, that's very good, and thank you so much. This
Yeah.
is Ray Mofield speaking. We take you back to our studios.